Welcome to Tangled Threads with Tiberius Templeton, where the only thing more tangled than our stories is the hair on our heads. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the madness. My girlfriend of 4 years won't talk to me anymore because I ate her leftovers. It's been a few days now since the incident happened, but I still can't believe that my girlfriend of 4 years won't talk to me anymore, all because I ate her leftovers. It seems ridiculous, but I guess it's just one of those things that you don't understand until it happens to you. I'm not so sure about that. It all started on a Thursday night. My girlfriend, Sarah, and I were both feeling lazy, and we decided to order some takeout from our favorite Italian restaurant. We ordered way too much food, as we often do, and ended up with a ton of leftovers. The next day, I was feeling pretty hungry around lunchtime, so I decided to heat up some of the leftover pasta for myself. I grabbed a container out of the fridge, but as I was heating it up, I realized that it was Sarah's container, not mine. Now, in my defense, Sarah and I have been living together for over 2 years now, and we've always shared food. It's not uncommon for us to finish each other's leftovers, and we've never had a problem with it before. But for some reason, this time it really bothered her. When Sarah got home from work that day, she immediately noticed that her container was missing from the fridge. I could tell that she was annoyed, but I didn't think much of it at first. I just assumed that she had eaten it for lunch herself. But when she asked me if I had eaten her leftovers, I could tell that something was different this time. Her voice was sharp, and her eyes were cold. I tried to play it off like it was no big deal, but she was clearly upset. "You ate my leftovers?" she asked, her voice rising with each word. I could see that she was getting more and more angry, and I didn't know what to do. I tried to explain that it was an accident, and that I had just grabbed the wrong container, but she wouldn't listen. She just kept repeating over and over again, "You ate my leftovers. You ate my leftovers." Eventually, she stormed off to our bedroom and slammed the door behind her. I was left standing there in the kitchen, feeling confused and frustrated. Over the next few days, things only got worse. Sarah wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't eat dinner with me, and wouldn't even sleep in the same bed as me. It was like she was punishing me for what I had done, but I still couldn't understand why it was such a big deal. I tried to talk to her about it, but she just shut me down every time. I even tried to make it up to her by cooking her favorite meal, but she wouldn't even look at it. Finally, after almost a week of silence, she agreed to talk to me. We sat down at our kitchen table, and she looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I know this sounds silly," she said, "but it's not about the leftovers. It's about respect." She went on to explain that it wasn't the fact that I had eaten her leftovers that bothered her so much, but the fact that I hadn't asked first. She felt like I was taking her for granted, and that I didn't care about her feelings. I listened to her words, and I realized that she was right. I had been so focused on my own hunger that I hadn't stopped to consider how my actions might affect her. I apologized to her and promised that I would never take her for granted again. It was a difficult conversation, but in the end, it brought us closer together. I think I need a stiff drink after that one. Anyone else? God forbid you keep your thoughts to yourself. The comments section is below. Next up on our story journey, my husband only cooks steak. I love my husband, I really do. He's an amazing father to our 2 children, a hard worker, and a generally great person to be around. But there's just one thing that's been bothering me lately. He only cooks steak. Now, don't get me wrong, I like steak as much as the next person. But when you've had it for dinner 5 nights in a row, it starts to lose its appeal. Oh no, this story is going to make me puke, I know it. It all started last week when my husband came home from the grocery store with a big bag of steak. He had a huge grin on his face and was practically bouncing with excitement. "I got us some steaks," he said, holding up the bag for me to see. I was a little surprised, but I figured it would be a nice treat for dinner. And it was delicious, don't get me wrong. But then the next night, and the night after that, and the night after that, we had steak again. At first, I didn't say anything. I figured my husband was just really excited about his new culinary obsession, and I didn't want to rain on his parade. But by the 5th night, I was getting pretty sick of steak. I tried to drop some hints, like suggesting we have chicken or fish for dinner, but my husband didn't seem to take the bait. He just kept talking about how much he loved steak, how it was the perfect meal, and how he was getting better and better at cooking it. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. As we sat down to another plate of steak, I blurted out, "Can we please have something else for dinner tomorrow?" My husband looked at me with surprise, like he had no idea I was getting tired of the steak. "Oh, sure," he said. "What do you want?" I suggested a few different options, but he seemed pretty set on cooking something else with steak. He even suggested we have steak tacos or steak stir-fry, as if adding a few different ingredients would magically make it a different meal. I tried to explain that I just needed a break from the steak, but he didn't seem to understand. He kept talking about how steak was the perfect protein, how it was so versatile, and how he was really getting the hang of cooking it just the way we liked it. I could tell that my husband was genuinely excited about his newfound love of steak, but it was starting to drive me crazy. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, but I couldn't keep eating steak every night, so I decided to take matters into my own hands. The next day, I went to the grocery store and picked up a bunch of different ingredients. I didn't really have a plan, but I figured I could whip something up that didn't involve steak. When my husband got home from work that night, he was surprised to see me in the kitchen. "What's going on?" he asked. "I'm making dinner tonight," I said, trying to sound confident. He looked a little skeptical, but he didn't say anything. I started chopping up vegetables, sautéing onions, and throwing in spices. I didn't really know what I was doing, but it smelled pretty good. Finally, I called everyone to the table. I had made a big salad, some roasted vegetables, and a few different types of pasta. I didn't know if it was going to be any good, but I was hopeful. To my surprise, everyone loved it. My husband raved about the different flavors and textures, and even the kids seemed to enjoy it. It wasn't steak, but it was a nice change of pace. After dinner, my husband came up to me and gave me a big hug. "I'm sorry I've been so stuck on steak lately," he said. "I just got really excited about cooking it, and I didn't realize how much it was bothering you." "It's okay," I said, returning the hug. "I'm glad we could try something different tonight." From that point on, my husband started to branch out a little more with his cooking. He still loved his steak, but he was more open to trying different types of meat and experimenting with different flavors. It was a relief to me, not just because I was tired of eating steak, but because it showed that my husband was willing to listen to me and try new things. We were able to find a happy balance between his love of steak and my desire for some variety in our meals. Looking back on it now, it seems like such a small thing, but at the time, it felt like a big deal. It was a reminder that even in a long-term relationship, it's important to communicate your needs and desires. And it was a reminder that sometimes a little change can be a very good thing. I am lost at how you ate anything for 5 days in a row. Anyways, if this story caught you ears, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. The next story awaits. Psycho music store employee won't let me buy guitar. I had been dreaming of owning my own guitar for years. I had been saving up for months, and finally, I had enough money to go out and buy one. I was so excited to walk into the music store and see all the different types of guitars lined up on the walls. And my excitement was short-lived. As soon as I walked in, a sales associate came up to me and looked me up and down. "Can I help you with something?" he asked. "Yes, I'm looking to buy a guitar," I said, smiling. He didn't smile back. "Sorry, we don't let just anyone touch the guitars. You have to be a serious musician." I was taken aback. "What do you mean?" "I'm serious about music. I've been practicing for years." The sales associate looked at me skeptically. "You don't look like you can afford one of these guitars." Well, this went off the rails quickly. I was wearing a hoodie and jeans, but I didn't think that should matter. "I have the money right here," I said, pulling out the wad of cash from my pocket. The sales associate frowned. "I'm sorry, but I can't let you touch any of the guitars. You look homeless." I was shocked. I couldn't believe this guy was judging me based on my appearance. I tried to explain to him that I had been saving up for months to buy a guitar, that I was serious about music, and had been practicing for years. And he wouldn't listen. He just kept telling me I couldn't touch the guitars, and that I needed to leave. I was so angry and frustrated. I couldn't believe that this sales associate was treating me this way. I didn't know what to do, so I left the store and started walking down the street. As I walked, I felt tears streaming down my face. I felt like I had been judged and rejected based on my appearance. It wasn't fair, and it wasn't right. But then I had an idea. I decided to go to another music store across town, one where I had never been before. Maybe there I would be treated differently, and I was. When I walked into the second music store, the sales associate greeted me warmly and asked how he could help me. He didn't judge me based on my appearance, and he didn't make any assumptions about my ability to play music. I ended up buying a beautiful guitar that day, and I spent hours playing it and practicing. It was the best feeling in the world, knowing that I had overcome the judgment and rejection that I had faced earlier. But even though I had found a happy ending, I couldn't help but think about the first music store and the sales associate who had judged me based on my appearance. It wasn't right, and it wasn't fair. I hope that someday people will learn to look beyond appearances and judge others based on their abilities and character, because everyone deserves a chance to pursue their dreams, regardless of how they look or what others may think of them. I think I need to lie down after that one. Anyone else feeling dizzy? As always, I'm on the edge of my seat waiting to hear what you have to say about this story. Please do share in the comments section below. Let's weave a new story. My best friend has eaten my leftovers 8 nights in a row. I love eating out. There's just something about trying new foods and experiencing different restaurants that I can't get enough of. And, of course, whenever I eat out, I always end up with leftovers. I live with my best friend, Tom, and he's always been pretty good about respecting my food. He knows that I enjoy bringing leftovers home, and he's never been one to touch them without asking. But lately, something has changed. Tom has been going through a rough patch with money, and he's been struggling to afford groceries. So when he saw my leftovers in the fridge, he started to help himself. At first, I didn't mind too much. I mean, I understand what it's like to be broke and hungry, and it's not like I was going to eat those leftovers anyway, right? But then it started to become a pattern. Every time I brought leftovers home, Tom would eat them, and not just a little bit. He would eat the entire container. At first, I tried to brush it off. I mean, it's just food, right? But as the nights went on and Tom continued to eat my leftovers, I started to feel frustrated and angry. I tried talking to Tom about it, but he just brushed me off. It's not a big deal, he said. You weren't going to eat it anyway. But it was a big deal to me. I felt like my boundaries were being violated, and I didn't know what to do about it. His just keep getting weirder and weirder. I tried hiding my leftovers, but Tom always seemed to find them. I even tried labeling them with my name, but that didn't seem to make a difference either. Finally, after 8 nights of Tom eating my leftovers, I decided to take a stand. I went out to eat and purposely didn't bring home any leftovers. When I got home, Tom asked me where my leftovers were. I didn't bring any home, I said firmly. Tom looked confused. Why not? Because I'm tired of you eating my leftovers every night, I said. It's not fair to me. Tom looked down at his feet. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't realize it was bothering you that much. We ended up having a long conversation that night about boundaries and respect. Tom apologized for not respecting my space and promised to be more mindful in the future. And you know what? He kept his promise. From that point on, he stopped eating my leftovers without asking. And while it might seem like a small victory, it was a reminder to me that sometimes it's important to stand up for yourself and your boundaries. At the end of the day, I still love eating out and bringing home leftovers. But now I know that my boundaries will be respected, and that's a small comfort that makes a big difference. What a fun batch of stories. If you're not clicking the bell when you subscribe to our channel, you're basically saying you hate joy and excitement. Click on the next video if you want to prolong your agony. Or not.